a fair and equitable Canadian energy transformation. Today is our second meeting with witnesses on this study. And note that we'll be meeting in public today to hear our witnesses up to 4:30. And the meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. Members attending in person in the room or also remotely using the Zoom application. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind all participants that screenshots or taking photos of your screen is not permitted now that we're in session. Today's proceedings will be televised and made available via the House of Commons website. For those attending in person, we encourage everyone to wear a mask when away from the table, and anyone joining us at on the periphery, we encourage you to please wear your masks. As we get underway today, I'd like to ask that people wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, you need to click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when not speaking. Interpretation is available for those on Zoom. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. And for those in the room, you can use the earpiece that's provided to get the desired channel. Reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. And if anybody's new at committee, we ask you just to talk in a normal pace so that our interpreters can keep up with the conversation. If anyone in the room wishes to speak, please raise your hand. For anybody on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. The clerk and I will do our best to manage the speaking order, and we ask for your patience as we sort through this hybrid format that we've been operating in. And in accordance with our routine motion, I'm informing the committee that all witnesses have completed the required connection tests in advance of the meeting. So with that, we're going to get into some opening statements. I would also like to welcome Mr. Morris for being here, and Mr. Shipley, I believe, either is online or will be joining us. And then otherwise, we have our regular members here. So on the study of creating a fair and equitable Canadian energy transformation, we have our witnesses, and it's a very exciting day. We actually have in-person witnesses. I think this is the first of this Parliament. And so we have for Canadians for Nuclear Energy, Christopher Kiefer, President, and for Nuclear Innovation Institute, Chad Richards, Director, New Nuclear and Net Zero Partnerships. Online, we have from the Canadian Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association, Mark Kirby, President and CEO, and also online, Electric Mobility Canada, Daniel Breton, President and CEO. And so maybe what we'll do is go to our online guests first for their opening 5-minute statements, and then we'll go to our guests in person. We used to like to do that because of technology. We have it more figured out this Parliament, but it's still always good just to make sure that our online guests make sure they get in there. So, Mr. Breton, would you like to start? Just so everybody knows, I'll use a card system. When I give you the yellow card, there's 30 seconds left, and then the red card is the time's up. Don't stop mid-sentence, but wind up your thought, and then we'll move on to the next person, and that applies when we're doing the questions and answers round as well. So, Mr. Breton, over to you. I'll give you 5 minutes.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello. We would like to thank the members of the Standing Committee on Natural Resources for taking the time to consider our thoughts on a fair and equitable transformation of Canada's energy sector. My name is Daniel Breton, CEO of Electric Mobility Canada. Founded in 2006, Electric Mobility Canada is one of the world's leading organizations in transportation electrification. Our members include manufacturers of light, medium, heavy, and off-road vehicles, electricity and charging infrastructure providers, mining companies, technology companies, and the automotive industry, mining companies, technology companies, research centers, cities, universities, fleet managers, union fleet managers, environmental NGOs, etc.
The International Monetary Fund published a report on the green economic transformation needed to achieve net zero emissions, including a chapter on labor market implications. The analysis demonstrates that more stringent environmental policies are associated with greener and less pollution incentive employment. It's not only good for employees' job security, it's also better for their health. Green infrastructure push and phase-in carbon taxes should be backed by training programs targeted to lower skilled workers and by earned income tax credit to support incentivized labor supply. Areas that rely more heavily on higher emission intensive production will have a larger reallocation need and a tougher transition. These policies would buffer the unequal impacts of the transition on low-skilled workers and reduce income inequality. Last year, our organization launched its 2030 V Action Plan that included 6 pillars for a successful transition towards an electric mobility ecosystem that would not only fight climate change and air pollution, but also create high-quality, sustainable jobs across the country. That's why we recommend supporting the clean job transition with ambitious training and retraining program so they will be able to find good paying and more stable jobs in electric mobility. In the electric mobility sector, job growth is exponential and the demand will continue growing for years. As written in our 2030 V Action Plan, a Canadian EV economic development and investment attraction strategy focused on R&D efforts and action to protect Canadian industry and workers from following by the domestic rules will help ensure a prosperous transition to electric mobility economy in Canada. So we recommend that the federal government focus its effort on, one, attracting more investment to accelerate EV manufacturing and related industry in Canada, including assembly, parts, machinery, charging equipment, and battery materials extraction and processing with a Canadian EV economic development and investment attraction strategy. Building these industries will create good, sustainable jobs and raise the profile of EVs to further support their adoption in Canada. 2, accelerating technologies, research, development, and a manufacturing associated with reducing the cost of vehicle batteries and thus vehicle cost per unit of charge. Achieving economies of scale in vehicle batteries charging infrastructure production will also help to reduce costs for consumers and fleets. 3, work with provinces to revamp the vehicle mechanic curriculum to prioritize EVs by fast-tracking training for EV mechanics and provide them with more apprenticeship opportunities. 4, building a labor force with the right skills from engineering and research to electrical and mechanical, charging infrastructure installation, maintenance, and fleet management will be critical to the success of Canada's transition to a zero-carbon economy. Exploring opportunities for the government to support employers, whether traditional industry or all EV, to train new employees who have not previously worked in the EV industry. Maintaining existing funding commitments for training and retraining will be vital. La raison pour laquelle nous devons
The reason we need to encourage the development of our own zero-emission vehicle supply chain from mining to mobility is to ensure that Canada is not left behind in the electric vehicle revolution that is occurring. For environmental reasons, but also for the future of Canadian workers, we must make the most of this opportunity that comes along once in a generation.
Merci. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those opening comments. Now we'll jump to Mr. Kirby. If you would like to take your 5 minutes, you can start right now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mark Kirby, President and CEO of the Canadian Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association. We're based in Vancouver, the traditional and unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, but I'm joining you today from Halifax, located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. And so for over 30 years, CHFCA has been the voice of Canada's world-leading hydrogen and fuel cell sector, committed to helping Canada achieve its net zero ambitions and to growing our sector. For over the past 3 years, we've enjoyed unprecedented interest and growth, and with good reason, and I welcome the opportunity to speak with you about hydrogen. I'm sure this committee understands the critical need to achieve our net zero 2050 goals and that clean tech is the greatest wealth creation opportunity of the 21st century. And you've heard by now that hydrogen is hot. I hope you'll have had the opportunity to read NRCan's Hydrogen Strategy for Canada. It's an excellent document, and it outlines how for Canada, hydrogen by 2050 will be a $50 billion per year industry with investment in economic opportunities, creating 350,000 jobs, and a reduction of over 190 million tons of CO2 equivalent. So those are big benefits, and they're also absolutely critical if we're to hope achieving our net zero 2050 goals. So we're going to need many more clean power projects, biofuel projects, carbon capture and sequestration projects, and Canada must also invest in hydrogen production, distribution, filling stations, and applications. And today I'd like to emphasize 3 key points. We recommend that Canada implement the recommendations of the hydrogen strategy. It identifies at minimum 800 million for hydrogen in our clean energy programs, grants, and contributions, and that at least 100 million of that is directly directed to supporting the development of hydrogen hubs. And getting more specific, let's talk truck drivers. The pandemic has shown how critical they are. It's a vital and growing sector. And unfortunately, its greenhouse gas emissions are significant and also growing. It must decarbonize and soon. Truck electrification can only be done through a combination of battery electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles. Together, they can lower costs for truck drivers, offering lower vehicle cost, improved performance and reliability, better fleet, driver, and payload efficiencies, economically sustainable infrastructure, and lower fuel costs versus diesel. But only if the appropriate supports are there, including a clean fuel standard that provides meaningful credits for both hydrogen and electricity purchases. Done right, it can actually be a business opportunity for truckers to electrify through hydrogen and, oh, by the way, also achieve net zero. And recognizing just 10,000 trucks out of the 200,000 trucks on the roads of Ontario alone would need $2 billion per year of hydrogen while saving those truckers money. And similar economics apply for light-duty fleets, for off-road mining, rail, marine, and aviation, and for industrial processes like steel and chemical production, for building and industrial heating. All will decarbonize quicker and more economically and more efficiently if they have the hydrogen choice available. And that's why there's so much interest in hydrogen, and investors are keen to build hydrogen plants, pipelines, and fueling stations. If they don't, Canada will be disadvantaged against our foreign competitors, and Canada is leadership in hydrogen technologies, but we could miss out on the economic opportunity of the industry as well as missing our commitments to net zero. So are we doing enough? We do have key policies in place, and the recent budget has significant dollars devoted to clean fuels, but there are two critical areas where Canada needs to do more. First, clear allocations for hydrogen. Unlike our international peers, the federal government is still not sending a clear message to Canadians and internationally that we are firmly in the hydrogen game. We need carve-outs for hydrogen to send a clear and unambiguous message to international investors that Canada is your choice for the world's lowest cost, cleanest hydrogen, and Canada is the place to deploy hydrogen vehicles, processes, and applications. Hydrogen allocations totaling 800 million would put us on par with the USA and at the lower end per capita versus our European and Asian peers. And second, and it's related, is hydrogen hubs. There are a dizzying array of funding sources that could be applied to hydrogen. They each cover one narrow aspect, and they're not organized and aligned. And this makes it very difficult and risky for hydrogen project developers to take on projects. It also opens the risk of investment in disconnected projects that do not have sound financial underpinnings. So to address this, we need specific support of at least 100 million allocated specifically for the development of hydrogen hubs. Provinces are ahead of this with Alberta, BC, Ontario, and Quebec all allocating support to hubs. The hubs are cluster multiple applications around a single common low-cost supply of clean hydrogen. They generate jobs, investment, provide that scale that's needed, lead to new technologies, skills training, all those things that we want to see happen. And by the way, they're a key part of the hydrogen strategy for Canada. So those are the three key points. Implement the recommendations of the hydrogen strategy for Canada, an 800 million carve-out for hydrogen, and support the development of hydrogen hubs. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Right in there on the 5 minutes, so thank you. Mr. Kiefer, Mr. Richards, either of you have a preference? Okay, Mr. Kiefer, do you want to go ahead? Okay, so over to you. I'll start the clock now.
Wonderful to be here in person with you. My name is Chris Kiefer. I'm an ER physician and also the president of Canadians for Nuclear Energy. We are a nonprofit made up of scientists, doctors, engineers, environmentalists, and tradespeople who believe that nuclear energy is the keystone technology of our climate response and really is the gold standard template for a just transition. Nuclear is an evidence-based path that we've walked before when we use nuclear energy right here in this province to provide 90% of the power generation needed to permanently close Ontario's massive coal fleet. Fossil fuel workers transition from high-paying, skilled trades jobs in coal to even better jobs in nuclear. We know that to get to net zero, we need to replace fossil fuel power generation with zero carbon power, at least 1-to-1. It's a simple concept with staggering implications. We currently use fossil fuels for 74% of our energy needs. And we need to build the equivalent of 113 Site C dams or 96 large Canada reactors to double our grid in order to electrify everything. You know, battery electric vehicles and hydrogen are a vital part of this solution, but electric vehicles don't charge themselves, and hydrogen doesn't fall like manna from the heavens. We need reliable energy to generate that. This will be an expenditure of hundreds of billions of dollars, and given the tight timelines and limited resources, we can't afford to get this wrong. So what are our options for that low-carbon power generation? Nationally, hydroelectricity has been the backbone of our low-carbon grid. It's largely tapped out and vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Geothermal is geographically limited, so we're left with potential scalable options of wind, solar, and nuclear. It is my contention that the just transition is technologically specific, and that despite excellent PR and branding, wind and solar, unfortunately, do not offer a just transition for Canadian workers. I'm going to explain myself by examining the respective supply chains, job types, and negotiating position of workers in these respective sectors. The nuclear supply chain is 96% made in Canada. That includes the mines, fuel fabrication, heavy industry, construction, operation, maintenance, and spent fuel handling. Nuclear energy consists of cheap uranium plus high-skilled, mostly union labor. It experiences an economic multiplier effect unparalleled by any other energy source. Every dollar invested in nuclear in Canada generates a $1.30 return in GDP. So we capture the value of that entire investment, and again, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars within the Canadian economy, and mostly within the pockets of working Canadians. Wind and solar, unfortunately, don't share this. The supply chain is almost exclusively overseas. 40% of the world's polysilicon is made in China's Xinjiang province, where there are credible allegations of forced Uyghur labor, and where the Canadian Parliament voted last year 266-0 that a genocide of the Uyghur people is taking place. 7 of the 10 largest wind turbine manufacturers are Chinese companies, and European wind developers are quickly moving their manufacturing to China for cheaper raw materials and labor. What are the just transition implications of spending hundreds of billions of dollars right here at home in Canada on nuclear, the ultimate economic multiplier, versus generating an epic trade deficit by sending that money to a foreign supply chain in an authoritarian country and becoming a nation of low-skilled, foreign-made solar panel and wind turbine installers? Let's talk about jobs now. I want you to imagine yourself in the parking lot at a nuclear plant. It's a big parking lot, probably 2,000 spots. Who's getting in and out of the cars? Nuclear plant workers, skilled tradespeople, boilermakers, pipe fitters, electricians, welders, STEM professionals, PhDs. These workers have permanent, secure, intergenerational employment anchored in their community, and almost all of them are union members. They earn 6-figure salaries mostly and spend their wages within their thriving local communities, stimulating their local economies. Wind and solar, on the other hand, does not offer these same kind of jobs. The majority are in installation and construction. Jim Harrison, the Director of Renewable Energy for the Utility Workers Union of America, says it's a lot of transient work that is marginal, precarious, and very difficult to organize. 2/3 of jobs are low-skilled and most are non-union. Once constructed, these facilities are virtually workerless. I want to close by talking a little bit about labor history and just how workers have got themselves just working conditions to this date. As Frederick Douglass famously said, power concedes nothing without demand. Workers were not historically gifted high wages and safe working conditions, they fought for them. It is high-skilled workers that are hard to replace with scab labor who have the right to strike that win concessions. Nuclear offers precisely this mix. An overseas supplies chain, workerless wind and solar facilities, and temporary low-skilled jobs do not offer this possibility. Ultimately, Canadian workers will be the heroes of their own just transition, but only if policymakers make the right technological choices and set the right industrial policy centered on Canadian nuclear energy. So my organization would like to see nuclear included in the Green Bond. Bonds built the infrastructure of this country, which we're currently freeloading on. You've heard the sheer volume of the number of power plants that we're going to need to build. I'd also like to suggest that we develop a federal vehicle which can help to facilitate investment in this structure, streamline licensing, et cetera. And lastly, there is a critical need for education in the STEM areas and skilled trades in order to staff the positions of this nuclear renaissance, which we truly believe is coming to Canada. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll jump right over to Mr. Richards for your opening 5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be with you today.
Nuclear Innovation Institute, we provide a platform for accelerating the pace of innovation within the nuclear sector while also serving as a connector and convener of ideas and people to tackle the challenges we face today. And those challenges are many and they are significant. 27 years, 250 days. That's how long we have until January 1st, 2050. We're all aware of the pledges and promises to get to net zero by 2050, but what is the scope of that challenge? Numerous reports have forecast that Canada will need to triple our level of electrical power production from 500 terawatt hours to 1,500 terawatt hours. And what does adding this new generation look like in real terms? Well, it's the equivalent of adding 113 new large hydroelectric reservoirs like Site C in British Columbia, or more than 90 new nuclear sites, as Chris mentioned. And if we're to use solely SMRs, small modular reactors, it means adding 380 SMRs to our grid. For wind, it's tens of thousands of new turbines, and relying solely on solar would require solar panels installed on a geographic space roughly 2.5 times the size of Prince Edward Island. 27 years, 250 days. All this means that we need to use every low carbon and decarbonization tool in the toolbox, and we need to start now. Quite simply, the net zero equation will never balance unless nuclear is a fixed variable. And when it comes to creating a fair and equitable energy transformation as part of these efforts, Canada's nuclear sector has many clear benefits. First, Canada's nuclear assets are already creating the kind of economic opportunities that must be commonplace in a net zero future. The phase out of coal in Ontario using nuclear is a prime example of a just transition in action, and it's working. One needs to look no further than the clean energy frontier region of Bruce, Grey, and Huron counties in Ontario. A rural economy that has been given a monumental economic boost from the presence of the Bruce Power nuclear generating station. The major component replacement project at Bruce Power, which will extend the life of this clean electricity powerhouse out until the year 2064, is injecting immense levels of investment and opportunity to the region. New businesses, literally thousands of jobs, and new opportunities. Opportunities like those that have supported our Indigenous communities, both in terms of employment and new ventures. Indigenous-owned businesses like Makwatron and Makwakal have been created because of the MCR investment, and a partnership between the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation and Bruce Power has been signed jointly to market medical isotopes. These are the kinds of opportunities that we all think of when we envision a fair and equitable energy transformation in Canada. And as work is underway to replace major components at Bruce Power, we are also finding new opportunities to increase the site's contribution to fighting climate change. Project 2030 at Bruce Power will see the site initially increase power output so that this clean energy asset can provide clean power to another 250,000 homes. And by 2030, we'll look to increase that output up to 7,000 megawatts. Maintaining and maximizing our clean energy assets will be critical in the goal of reaching net zero by 2050. And these opportunities are supporting Ontario-based and Canadian-based supply chains. More than 90% of Bruce Power's total spending occurs within Ontario. 98% of that stays in Canada. It's spending that supports Canadian jobs at Canadian-based businesses. From uranium extraction in Saskatchewan to plant operations in Ontario and New Brunswick, nuclear is a true Canadian success story. Recent global events, from the pandemic to war in Ukraine, have shown us the true value of homegrown supply chains. Finally, when it comes to creating a hydrogen economy, nuclear will play a central role. Using targets in the hydrogen strategy for Canada, NII did the math on what it will take to meet those targets in terms of electricity production. And it should be no surprise that we'll need an incredible amount of new electricity generation, the equivalent of 9 new nuclear sites or 196 SMRs or 5,500 utility-scale solar farms. Nuclear must be a key contributor to creating this economy, and nuclear operators like Bruce Power are doing their part. Feasibility work announced as part of the Ontario government's hydrogen strategy is already underway to explore hydrogen production and end uses. And governments can do more when it comes to workforce planning for a hydrogen economy. We'll need a host of new skills and certifications across the country to enable our workers to work in a hydrogen economy. Positions like fuel cell retrofit installers and fueling station managers need to be explored now, and jobs like pipeline construction workers and system safety inspectors will need new certifications and new skills to work in a safe and effective hydrogen economy. This is all highlighted in a 2021 report from the NII that I will be happy to submit to the clerk for the committee's review as part of this study. With that, I'd like to thank the committee for the invitation to appear today, and I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Excellent, thank you. So we're going to get right into some of our rounds of questions, and the first round is 6 minutes each, and the first person is over to Mr. McGuire. So with that, the floor
Thank you,
is
Mr.
yours.
Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for their presentations today. I'd just like to get into the nuclear side of this a little bit more. Canada's a leader in nuclear research and technology, exporting a lot of the CANDU reactor systems and most of our uranium products. So what should the government do to expand the industry here in Canada and potentially and use it to make as many jobs as we can, potentially. Either Chris or Chad, if
I can start. Dr. Kiefer, through you, Mr. Chair, Dr. Kiefer mentioned the green bond framework, inclusion, ensuring that there's a level playing field for all of our clean energy assets is critical. We can't just pick and choose the technologies that are going to succeed. I think we need a level playing field for all those technologies. The major component replacement project that I mentioned taking place at Bruce Power is a key example of support that we have right now for the nuclear industry and maintaining support for these assets, ensuring that we continue to build out those supply chains that are supporting the build out of major components at those sites are critical to keeping our supply chain onshore right now. And literally right now there's quite literally no better time to be building more nuclear with a supply chain that's humming right now, producing major components for refurbishments at Darlington and Bruce. I think that now's the right time to be looking further to what more we can build.
Yeah, just to follow on that, we have the SMR action plan in place, which is excellent. I think the scale of what's required, the staggering scale truly of the number of power plants we need to build really means that we cannot abandon our CANDU technology, which is, in the words of Seamus O'Regan, a gold standard reactor around the world. First off, we're into refurbishments, which is absolutely excellent. It positions Canada very well. Many other Western countries have had troubles with new build in the last 20 years, and it's because they had an atrophied workforce and they were experimenting with new designs. So we have a design that we're intimately familiar with thanks to the refurbishment and an absolutely excellent tuned-up workforce ready to go. In terms of, federally, how we can support the provinces, because it's a provincial jurisdiction, building power generation. I really think this needs to be subject of some form of a parliamentary inquiry, because, this is a staggering challenge. In World War II, I think we started 17 crown corporations and we built more armored vehicles than the Axis allies combined. We talk about the need for, World War II level mobilizations. Federal governments have got involved in energy before. We have unfortunately bailed out things like hydro dams. The federal government bought the TMX pipeline. We have a percentage of the Hibernia oil fields. It's time to make those kind of investments in nuclear, which is really what can deliver both effective deep decarbonization, as we proved here in Ontario, and a just transition, as I hope that we've demonstrated.
Should the committee ask the government to send a signal that the nuclear energy must expand to meet future energy needs as part of this transition? You've answered that, I think.
I'll give you one word, yes.
Yeah. And also, the wind and solar energies that you had, I'll get back to you on that as well. But, the wind and solar technologies, as you indicated in your opening remarks, are not as reliable and they're foreign made. We've got a nuclear system here that I think you just described as top-notch in the world and creating valuable, well-paying jobs, unionized jobs in most cases as well. So is there anything you want to expand on that?
Yeah, there's a big taboo to talk in negative terms about wind and solar technology. This is not punching down. Of global electricity spending, it's about $800 billion. Wind and solar are using about $300 billion of that investment. And this is a critical issue. I'm not paid by the industry. I'm a physician giving up shifts so I can come to Ottawa and give this testimony. I do this out of a sense of civic duty. I'm the father of a 3.5-year-old, and I think we have a really divergent path forward in terms of what this country is going to look like. And we desperately need to reshore industry, and to do that, we need reliable energy to drive that. If you look at what's going on with the Russian aggression in Ukraine right now, the EU is completely handicapped in terms of stopping this, because they're funding that aggression to the tune of 700 million euros every single day, because they created a wind and solar dominant energy transition backed by natural gas. That's the problem, as you were saying, of this unreliability and intermittency. There's lots of fairy tales about, grid scale batteries and other solutions, but the richest industrialized country in Europe, who have embarked the most on this, spent $550 billion on this process, rely on coal for the dominant source of electricity in 2021 and Russian gas now. Canada could find itself in the same situation with the supply chains I was talking about. What happens if China takes Taiwan? How do we respond effectively to that? We cannot set ourselves up in that way for reasons, again, of effective deep decarbonization, of a just recovery and a just transition, and in matters of vital national security and energy security. Nuclear absolutely needs to be centered by this government.
That we're going to have to double or triple the amount of electrical grid that we have in order to accommodate net zero by 2050. So what policy changes specifically should the federal government make to get more nuclear energy generation to support this net zero future? I mean, the green bonds is one thing, but is there others?
Through you, Mr. Chair, going back to the previous question before to the honourable member, I direct him to a recent paper that was released by the International Monetary Fund, where it showed that investment in nuclear power produces the biggest multiplier effect of any clean source of electricity generation, and nuclear creates 25% more employment per unit of electricity than wind, and workers in those industries earn about 30% more. To your question about what the government can do, absolutely, the recommendations in Dr. Kiefer's address and really supporting the CNSC in moving regulatory approvals through as quick as possible is something we can do.
We're unfortunately out of time on that one. We're going to go now to Ms. Jones for her 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentations today, and to our guest online. Absolutely, it's very interesting, and I'm going to start my questions on the uranium side. On the nuclear side, I say uranium because my riding's in Labrador and we have lots of uranium. And I'm happy to see that it is a critical mineral in Canada and the opportunity to really see that develop. But in addition to that, I come from one of the areas in Canada that probably has the best geological compound for depository waste storage of nuclear as well. And it's something that has always been highlighted and brought forward, you know, and obviously one of the areas that has always been a concern whenever we talk about nuclear, whenever we talk about uranium and advancing that industry. And I think it is a concern for Canadians. So one of my questions is in how we address that. My second question is with regard to production. So we see what's happening with nuclear production in Canada today. How much production do we need to get to? What does that increase look like? And what's our transmission ability to bring that to provinces and territories around the country? So I'll stop there and listen to your responses.
I'm learning the etiquette here, but through the chair. You're right, uranium is a critical mineral. And, you know, I did some back of the envelope calculations on this. Uranium actually offsets 1/3 of Canada's national annual emissions. We put out 730 megatons. The uranium that we contribute domestically and internationally to the global reactor fleet, which creates this is definitive now, in terms of the life cycle analysis of CO2 emissions, nuclear is rock bottom, 5 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. So that uranium displaces 1/25 of all of humanity's global emissions, and again, 1/3 of Canada's national emissions. So uranium is something we should be very proud of. Uranium mining has come a long way. You know, it is one of the most heavily regulated industries in the world, and we're doing a very good job of that now. In regards to the waste, I think this is a really important question, and I'm glad that it came up. You mentioned having really good geology for a potential repository. You know, what really put me at ease was talking with a number of geologists. And the thing is, you're saying the rock is so good, right? And the rock is the barrier. The mechanism for waste to get out of a repository and accumulate in a dose that could be harmful to anybody is that water needs to get through all of these engineered barriers, right? It needs to dissolve a ceramic, okay, which doesn't happen very easily, and then it has to carry those radioisotopes in solution through the rock. Well, the rocks we're looking at in South Bruce, it takes 1 million years for water to move 1 meter, right? And after about 1,000 years, the only way for nuclear waste to harm you is if you eat it, pulverize it, and eat it. And I'm saying this as a physician who's looked into this in some detail. I'm not trying to brush off concerns here. But we've made such a mountain out of a molehill with the waste. You know, all of the waste that Canada has produced in 70 years would fit in one hockey rink piled 1 telephone pole high, just to give you a sense of that volume. You know, this room maybe with the ceiling twice as high. Uranium is so incredibly energy dense, and that's the secret to why it is such an environmentally friendly form of energy generation. You do the least mining. You need the least materials, right? A nuclear power plant might look big and ominous, but the Pickering nuclear power plant on the footprint the size of Costco provides all of the baseload needs for the GTA. So it's staggering. And that's why I've come to be passionate about it. You know, again, I have no ties to this industry. It's just, you know, having looked at the evidence, how serious climate change is, and started to evaluate what the potential solutions are, this is where I've been steered towards. And I'm sorry if I'm taking up too much time here. I'll cut the mic.
Is there enough time to address my second question, which is transmission capacity for nuclear energy.
Yeah.
What does that look like in getting it to the provinces and territories?
Yeah, it's absolutely transmission is absolutely an incredible challenge given the just different jurisdictional nature of building out that infrastructure. So I think that the federal government has shown some leadership on developing new transmission infrastructure, but absolutely can go further. There's really big conversations that need to take place with provinces about federal provincial interties and interties between other jurisdictions. So I think that that absolutely needs to happen, and working with all the system operators around the country needs to start ASAP.
Just because I don't know, I'm not not an expert in this, but when you look at transmission of current day oil generated power, is it the same kind of transmission capacity, or is it done differently? Is there different ways that you can get it, or is it transmitted in the same medium? Because I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you need that high grade electricity transmission to run from operating sites. So I don't know. I can't speak to what it looks like as compared to other sources, but I think that that's investments in transmission infrastructure are going to be absolutely critical. We need to move that now.
What I could quickly add is that we have a number of sites, particularly old retired coal plants like Nanticoke here in Ontario, and that is sitting there with the transmission capacity ready to go. And building nuclear on retired coal sites is a great way to justly transition those workers over.
Thank you. I'm good.
We're going to go now to Monsieur Simard. Monsieur Simard, vous avez 6 minutes.
You have 6 minutes. Thank you very much. A small question for Mr. Breton. In your presentation, you talked about some of the federal government initiatives that could be done to work on the electrification of transportation. We see that the federal government supports oil and gas, but it doesn't seem to be the case for renewable energy. So there are support programs for oil and gas. For example, in the last budget, $2.5 billion to develop strategies to capture carbon, but there's very little talk about the electrification of transportation. So, Mr. Breton, are you aware of any federal programs that support the electrification of transportation beyond the tax credit that everyone knows about? Answer: I would like to thank you for your question. I can see myself on 2 screens. Is everything okay? So, it's an interesting question, but I need to admit that we talk a lot about the production of energy, renewable energy, or nuclear energy, but something that we should talk about more is the efficiency. If we look at the G20 countries, Canada is number 1 for the consumption of energy and also number 1 for GHGs per inhabitant, and the consumption of GHGs for its lightweight vehicles. So we are big wasters of energy. So before we look into the production of new energy, regardless of what we choose, we should work on the fact that we waste less energy. We need to be much more efficient. I don't mean here that we don't need new sources of energy production, of clean energy, but one thing's certain, we need to stop thinking that we need to keep producing more. I think we need to start by wasting less. With regards to your question, there's an important thing to say. The government committed to stop funding fossil fuels. We hope that it'll be happening soon because it's something that has been talked about for years. With regards to electrification, with going beyond the tax credit, they also mentioned a program for mid, and heavy vehicles as well, whether they be hydrogen or other. And in the past 2 years, and specifically in the past couple months, the federal government announced the programs for creating electric vehicles, batteries. I've been talking about the electrification of vehicles since 2006, and it feels like things have been put in motion, but only for the past 2 years. But there's a lot of work left to be done, because when we're talking about an equitable transition, well, the problem with the electrification of transportation is not that we want to create an industry. There is an industry. That industry is currently growing exponentially. The problem will be to find workers. So for us, we need to be able to support current workers, people who are currently in high school, CEGEP, university, and colleges throughout Canada. We need to support them in finding good paying jobs. And there's a bit of a disconnect. There are workers who lose their jobs in certain sectors, and they're not able to make the transition. So the support work for workers is important. And this is what we talk about with Unifor union members. We want to have an automobile industry in Canada. Yes, we need to say that we will be creating jobs, but we also need to create workers. There was an announcement made in the Bécancour. They say that they will be needing qualified workers, but you can't create these workers with a magic wand. There needs to be a qualification created in partnership with universities and colleges. And in the plan to reduce GHGs by the federal government, there was something missing. There's something missing on education and training, and that is so important, and we need to highlight this, because without that, we won't be able to fill in all the positions. Thank you. A question for Mr. Kiefer and Mr. Richard. Mr. Kiefer, I saw that you're quite passionate. I noticed this when you were talking about nuclear. I have to talk about something that concerns me, waste management. You know that in Chalk River there is nuclear waste that is close to a water supply. So if something unfortunate were to happen, well, the island of Montreal could not have access to clean water. I don't know much about waste management, but it's a major concern for a lot of people. How could we have a waste management that would be acceptable and that would create risks that would be less significant? Because we need to support workers, but the equitable transition is also to not put a burden on future generations. And I think that waste management is something that the future generations will have to pay the price for.
End of the 6 minutes, but I'll give you just a quick response to that if you could, and then we'll move to Mr. Angus for his 6 minutes.
Sure. I mean, like I said, this is an issue that does definitely merit a response. We've been storing spent civilian nuclear waste for 70 years now. In the world's history of storing spent civilian nuclear waste, there's not been a single death associated with that. We know how to shield radiation very, very well. We need a permanent solution. Finland is building a deep geologic repository right now. It'll be open shortly. As I was mentioning before, the geology is what contains it. We talk about burdening things. We think about civilizational life skills. It's reasonable to say, oh my God, 10,000 years. There hasn't been a civilization that's lasted 10,000 years. We're talking about rock that's hundreds of millions of years old and completely stable, where we understand, again, the characteristics of that rock. And as I was mentioning before, if it takes water 1 million years to move a meter through that rock, carrying anything that could potentially come out from all of those engineered barriers, it's no longer harmless at that point. We need to be worried about the forever wastes out there, the heavy metals, and particularly the fossil fuels that are continuously spilling into our atmosphere and driving climate change. So I know we don't have much time, and I'm happy to address this further, but I do think this issue has really been blown out of proportion by anti-nuclear environmentalists that use it as a means to prevent what I think is our most effective climate solution.
Okay, Mr. Angus, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much. I was reading the IPCC reports on nuclear. They're not quite as gung-ho as you are, Mr. Kiefer. They rate the serious question about risks of proliferation, negative environmental impacts, mixed effects on human health. They talk about the long timeline it takes to actually get one of them up and running. And they talk about the risk of accidents and radioactive waste management. So that's the IPCC report. But I'd like to focus on the issue of proliferation because these small modular reactors are different than CANDU. So, Mr. Kiefer, we're going to be pitching this technology to the global south where it's possible to extract plutonium. How are you going to address that issue of the threat of proliferation of nuclear?
Pass the question to another. I'm
asking you.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to answer part of that. I'm not a nuclear engineer. This issue of nuclear energy leading to nuclear weapons. We have some interesting examples. Look at South Korea and North Korea. North Korea, a country with no civilian nuclear program and nuclear weapons. South Korea, a country that is about 40% powered by nuclear energy, right?
Our technology,
right.
The small modular reactors that you can get plutonium from. They're not CANDU reactors. So why are we selling them if you can get plutonium from them?
So plutonium is created as part of neutrons bombarding uranium-238 inside of reactors around the world. It is incredibly difficult to extract plutonium from spent nuclear fuel like that. I'm going to leave that to my.
I have to go on.
Sure.
I only have 6 minutes. But
sure. That's not.
I mean, listen, I'm just Charlie for Northern Ontario, but I'm reading the IPCC. And they have flagged this as a serious concern. So I just want to go to the Toronto Star. April 2nd, David Olive, I'm sure you read his article on questions about these small modular reactors. He says that over 20 years in development, still in the concept stage, current SMR designs won't achieve widespread deployment until the mid-2030s. By then, they will have been overtaken by improvements in existing clean energy sources and future advances in biomass, hydrogen, methane emission reductions. He says that SMRs are a boutique technology, and given the urgency of the climate crisis, even a modest distraction by SMRs is an extravagance we can't afford. And then he refers to it as a boutique boondoggle. Given the fact that we know these other technologies are up and ready to go, why go down this road?
Well, Charlie, you mentioned biomass. Biomass is a terrible source of energy. We're taking land that could be used to grow food and turning it into fuel. We're turning wood chips into power. We currently, the largest plant in the UK, they burn 4 gigawatts of wood chips from South Carolina, right? So saying that a biomass is a solution, the SMR that we're pursuing here is based on existing technology. It's just a scaled down version of a larger power plant. This isn't a bogeyman. We've been operating boiling water reactors around the world since the 60s.
We get told that we're afraid of this. In fact, you told us I could go home to my people and tell them they could eat uranium. I mean, God help us. Us people in Northern Ontario.
You're misquoting me, Charlie. I did not say that.
You said that we made a mountain out of a molehill over nuclear waste. When the questions that are being raised about the small modular reactors and the enriched uranium, this isn't CANDU waste. This is a different kind of waste. And, I come from Northern Ontario. We live with rock. Rock moves. Water moves. I don't know if maybe Yvonne Jones wants it, but you guys, you send your people to our area all the time looking for a place to dump it because it's a serious issue. But the CANDU reactors have a kind of technology, but this is different. And you haven't addressed the fact that we're talking about an enriched uranium that there's serious questions about. So am I supposed to go home and tell people in Northern Ontario, hey, it's all been overblown, you can fit it in a hockey arena, you can eat it?
So, Charlie,
that's not a plan.
You're right that Canada has homegrown nuclear technology where we use non-enriched uranium. The rest of the world uses slightly enriched uranium in their reactor fleets and are managing their waste. The Onkalo site, the Finnish site for their DGR, is going to be holding waste from those kind of reactors. Canada is actually unique in using non-enriched. This is not a major issue. And again, waste being managed worldwide.
The modular reactors are different than CANDU, and that's the question Mr. Romano, the physicist, gave at the Environment Committee, was that because it's enriched uranium, it's a different waste, and it's a more problematic waste than dealing with what we're still trying to figure out where to put the CANDU.
It's the waste that's produced in reactors basically everywhere in the world outside of Canada, and it's what's going to be put into the Finland depository. I think you really need to consult with some more physicists on this and some more nuclear engineers on this to understand this issue in more depth. And in regards to the IPCC,
he's a physicist and he raised this because the idea that boy oh boy you can eat the uranium once it's
I never
spent.
said that, Charlie.
Well, you said you did. You said if it sits long
I said
enough.
after 1,000 years,
After a thousand
years, the only way it could hurt you is if you pulverized it and ate it.
Yeah,
I'm
pulverized it
not
and
suggesting
ate it.
anyone eat nuclear waste, Charlie.
Well, I've been in Northern Ontario, and we've dealt with nuclear issues time and time again. And if you're 7,000 feet underground, water moves. If you go 7,000 feet
Charlie, talk to a
underground,
geologist, Charlie.
Yeah, I've been
Honestly.
there. I've been there.
No,
I've seen
speak
it.
to some of the
Yeah,
geologists.
Yeah, and
okay.
I've never met a geologist who said we should store this in Northern Ontario, especially the SMRs. So you're giving us a great spin, but
Mr. Angus, I was
there's
just gonna
serious
say-
issues here.
Mr. Richards was, if you're interested, trying to get into the conversation as well. I don't know if you saw.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the honourable member. Just with respect to the question about SMR technology, I think the fact that it's a new technology doesn't mean that it's not going through the CNSC and our world-class regulator to look at safety aspects. So I think that I trust the great folks at the CNSC who for years have been regulating an industry that has been operating safely and effectively, and I would trust them again with this process as well as they evaluate the utility of this technology and the safety systems around it.
Sorry, so it hasn't been approved yet. It's being tested.
It's moving through the CNSC.
Okay,
process.
thank you.
Sorry, yeah, and that's the end of that 6-minute round. So we're now going to go to a slightly shorter one, a couple of 5 minutes and then a couple of 2.5 minutes, and that's going to be the end of the time that we have. So, Mr. McLean, you get the first 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome, and thank you to the nuclear representatives here for presenting viable technology that isn't just technology, and it exists today, so it's not fairy tale stuff, but also is an energy system. So not just something where you add on to somebody else's energy system and pretend it works at part-time. I really appreciate your comments on wind and solar, and I'd like you to expand a bit on the actual capacity of wind and solar versus the energy delivery of wind and solar, specifically on a cold day in Canada, in Alberta, how much power is produced by all our alternative energy, wind and solar, versus their capacity. Any clue of the numbers?
You've looked at them recently.
I have.
But
I know these numbers. Yeah.
across Canada, solar averages around 15% capacity factor, meaning it produces 15% of the installed amount that you've made, and wind is usually around 35%. CANDUs are running over 90%.
I think that's capacity numbers. In Canada, wind and solar combine to make less than 1% of our electricity production. So let's accept that if wind and solar are our only options here, then Canadians will freeze in the dark. We need an actual energy solution like nuclear that actually does provide some base load power, not just some intermittency. Are you familiar with the cost of tying intermittent power into a sustainable power grid itself?
One can look at the example of Germany, which has the most expensive electricity in the EU, and at California as well. While building a solar farm is cheap, the cost of the electricity produced when you flick the switch, you're not just getting solar energy. When the sun goes down, you're getting usually natural gas-fired energy, and those plants are not being run as efficiently because it's like stop-and-go traffic instead of highway driving for the power plants backing things up.
You need essentially a lot of inverters, a lot of build out of the power, all of which are paid for by ratepayers, which in Canada are taxpayers at the same time, because especially in Ontario, and Quebec, many of the electricity customers, business-wise, are subsidized. Let's go into the dollars per kilowatt hour, if you will. What's the dollars per kilowatt hour of production of power by nuclear? All life cycle, so capital cost, everything.
I have to give that one to you, Jen.
So looking at numbers from last year, so I can't speak to life cycle, but I have in front of me numbers from the 2021 Ontario Energy Board total unit supply cost, and it's in cents per kilowatt hour. So the average residential price for power was 13.5 cents per kilowatt hour. When we look at combined nuclear in Ontario, it was 8.9 cents per kilowatt hour that ratepayers were paying for, or the grid was paying for that power. When we look at solar, it was 49.7 cents per kilowatt hour, wind 14.8 cents per kilowatt hour. So nuclear actually, despite some of the rhetoric out there, is actually one of the cheaper forms when it comes to ratepayer benefit.
Thank you for that. And versus Muskrat Falls, and I have some colleagues here from Newfoundland, at 26.5 cents per kilowatt hour for the electricity being provided by that newest hydro option in Canada. So much appreciated numbers. I'm going to move now to my old favorite, Mr. Breton. Mr. Breton, Thank you for coming again. You've appeared before me in committee a couple times already, and you keep promising me that you're going to give me better data when this meeting is over. This is a committee of parliament, and I've yet to see you provide me with the data that I'm missing that you seem to be more seized with than I am. But my numbers and your numbers differ substantially. But I do have your transcripts of the last 2 times you've appeared with me in these committees. And let me go through some of those where you actually talked about wind and solar being the options to move to an actual grid here that is sustainable and actually does away with hydrocarbons as far as our internal combustion engine fleet. Can you please, would you like me to refer to that in our meeting at Natural Resources Committee in the last Parliament?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, sure. But I'm not here to talk about wind and solar. I'm here to talk about electric mobility.
That's right. And you talked about $200 billion being funded by the federal government in order to move towards a zero-emission vehicle fleet. Now, you're funded by the zero-emission vehicle industry to some degree, correct?
Well, yes.
Okay, thank you. And yet, last time I had you in front of the Finance Committee, you were asking for $2 million to subsidize your office and your appearances here before parliamentary committees, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so $2 million, and then I actually asked at the last Natural Resources Committee you appeared at what your budget was, and you said $2 million. So this is a hash. You know, you want the federal government to give you $2 million so you can fund yourself, so you can appear before committees. This is what the government calls a circular economy, is it not?
No, because we didn't get a penny. So I guess that
Thank
we're
you.
self-funded.
Self-funded by Crown corporations, would you say?
With that,
No, because the vast majority of our members are private companies. So
like Quebec Hydro and Ontario Hydro, or these are...
I'm going to jump in here. We're unfortunately out of time. This goes quickly, and we have a limited time to finish off. So I'm now going to go to Ms. Lapointe and reset the clock. You have 5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Breton, I have a question with regards Canada's transition with electric vehicles. In your testimony from last spring at the International Trade Committee, you said that human and natural resources in Canada place us well to become world leaders in electric mobility. So, on a global perspective, can we be autonomous for the whole supply chain with electric vehicles? Would it be logical to highlight an expertise in only parts of that supply chain? Can a country do everything itself? Answer: no country can be completely autonomous for the manufacturing of electric vehicles. We have agreements with Europe and the United States to develop a supply chain for electric vehicles. So the answer is no, no country can be completely autonomous. Canada is not an island that is unable to access other countries. But the federal government made announcements for the manufacturing of vehicles, heavy vehicles, buses, trucks, charging stations, batteries. There are a lot of announcements that are very interesting. And thanks to these, well, in my opinion, Canada was at risk of becoming a minor player in the automotive sector. But through what the government has done, it shows that Canada wants to be a major player. I would like to congratulate Mr. Champagne, who worked very hard to bring international interest to Canada and to Quebec. Last week at the Montreal Electric Vehicle meeting, we talked a lot about this, and when I was young, I worked at a refinery. You may or may not believe me, in Montreal East. Now, there is only one refinery left there. So, things started years ago, and If we want an equitable transition, we need to be able to train people. And currently, one of the challenges is training people properly so they can have these good quality jobs, whether it be in the mining sector or research or assembly or in the sale, maintenance, in those sectors. So there needs to be job, and that means jobs not only in Quebec and Ontario, but throughout the country. And in the mineral sectors and mining sectors, we need more workers in the supply chain. Where do you believe Canada is situated with regards to qualified workers in natural resources and the construction of electric vehicle networks? And do we have the intellectual capacity as well? Answer: we still have a lot of work to do. There are countries like Canada, for example, that started working on this 2 decades ago. The United States, Canada, and even Europe have taken things for granted in a way. I've been talking about electrification of transportation for years, but Western countries have only started seeing the importance of the transition towards electric vehicles in the past few years, whether it be hydrogen or batteries, and all of a sudden, manufacturers are saying, oh, we have to transition. They're a little stuck. Last week, I went to the Salon des Véhicules in Montreal, and there was a high participation rate because a lot of people want electric vehicles, but it was hard to find qualified workers to even work on sales. So there needs to be a whole chain done for training. Manufacturers have a role to play, but so does the government. And I discussed this with the Department of Natural Resources to create training programs, and it is urgent to do so.
Vous avez dit que
You said that the government decreased risks, or that the government should decrease risks. Do you have any other advice for the government? When we talk about a plan to reduce GHGs like the one that was announced a few weeks ago, what's important is to invest the money appropriately. When we're talking about $900 million, $400 million for natural resources, and investment for the infrastructure bank, for electric vehicles, battery or hydrogen, we want to ensure that things are invested correctly in the right fields. Currently, there are challenges with charging in downtown areas. We see that highways are well supplied, but and of course in BC and Quebec, they are ahead of other provinces. So that's why we are often discussing with elected officials to ensure that the funds are allocated as efficiently as possible. We don't want to waste any of those funds. And if we want to decrease our GHGs and do an equitable transition, we need to be efficient. So the idea that we always want to produce more, that we want to produce better vehicles, it's a little counterintuitive. We need to first show that we can be efficient.
We're over time here. But
Okay, I'm sorry.
good. Thank you very much. We'll now go to Monsieur Simard for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I saw that there was a love story between my colleague Craig and Mr. Breton. I would like to specify that if Craig is looking for public funds that are dilapidated, then he should look at the oil and gas sector. It might be more interesting. But I have a quick question for Mr. Kiefer. We know that Pointe-le-Preau represents about $3 billion. I'm wondering if we were to compare the cost of kilowatt hours for hydroelectricity and for nuclear production, what would that look like? Do you have any data on that?
Merci, Mario, for the question. I don't have data precisely on New Brunswick. I think it's important to remember that nuclear plants were built instead of coal and gas plants. So, our Pickering nuclear station here was built instead of a 4-gigawatt coal plant. I'm not sure what would have been built instead of Point Lepreau. We should look at that. I bet you that it was coal. As you heard my colleague, he gave you the numbers for here in Ontario. Nuclear is the second cheapest source of electricity after hydro. So I think it's a very good investment for New Brunswick to make. Point Lepreau had a refurbishment. That plant is going to be operating into the 2040s, 2050s, providing air pollution-free, carbon-free energy for the people of New Brunswick that is reliable. And I can get back to you on the numbers on it. I'm not an expert on New Brunswick nuclear, but thank you for the question.
I'm not sure if Mr. Richards might have some numbers. So the cost difference between hydro in Quebec and nuclear.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the honourable member. I don't have a number specific to Quebec or New Brunswick. In Ontario, using data from the 2021 Ontario Energy Board total unit supply cost, hydroelectric power in Ontario was about 6 cents per kilowatt hour. Combined nuclear was 8.9 cents per kilowatt hour.
La dernière question.
I'll leave the last question to Mr. Morris.
Yeah, we've got the numbers already. From the Canadian Small Modular Reactor Roadmap Steering Committee, their forecast is the first SMR wouldn't go online until 2030 at 16.3 cents per kilowatt hour. Quebec is currently selling to New York at 5 cents per kilowatt hour. And so my question, if we're going to take urgent action on climate change at the most cost-effective way, what's your response to these kinds of figures?
So Quebec, as we heard from our friend involved in the electric vehicle fleet, is going to need to use a lot more of its own electricity. And we would be, I think, shameless to freeload off of that generation that they've built there in Quebec. We each need to take responsibility for our own climate solutions. If I could...
it's my time.
Yeah.
Sorry. Quebec is selling there.
We're out of time, if we're going to play that. Okay. So now I'm going to go to Mr. Angus, and he'll do his last 2.5 minutes.
Turn to you. I think given this conversation, if this was 2006, this would be a great conversation because we could plan. We had lots of time ahead of us. But I'm looking at the IPCC that says 5 years. We have to have a serious plan. So we need stuff that we can actually pretty much take off the shelf and get up and running. And that's why I question small modular reactors. None of them have been approved yet, and we're hearing 2030 maybe at the earliest. So for hydrogen, what's it going to take to get this technology? Is this another pie-in-the-sky thing that we're going to have to spend billions on and we're going to have to try a whole bunch of ideas? Or can we get hydrogen up and running in the next few years? What would it take?
Hydrogen, certainly not pie in the sky, is already a very major industry. And I think the key thing about it is, I understand there's a debate on what source of power we get it from, but hydrogen complements them all. If you're making nuclear, you can try produce power, heat, and hydrogen. If you're talking renewables and wind and solar, you can use the hydrogen to help smooth the band and provide additional value to them. If you're talking fossil fuel and a just transition for the fossil fuel sector, you can produce hydrogen and sequester or manage the carbon and allow that industry to continue thriving. So I think I personal view is we're going to need all these solutions. As you mentioned, we got a very short period of time.
I get that, but are you able to do it now?
We can start making hydrogen now. We are making hydrogen. We're one of the largest clean hydrogen producers in the world. We need to be, it is not as far advanced as battery technology, no question of that. We need to be smart about how we deploy that and start putting this into the hubs that I mentioned. So you concentrate, get the good economics in place, and you can start deploying buses today. We could already start deploying light-duty vehicles. We can start deploying trucks that are going to be coming in the near future. When you talk to the major truck producers, they know they have to decarbonize trucking, and they know that's going to have to be done with hydrogen. And we need to get ready to be able to use those. That can be done cost effectively.
Just a quick question to Mr. Breton, because my time's running out. In terms of training, because I've been meeting with steelworkers, IBEW, Unifor, they're all getting set. They don't see that this is going to be a low-paying job grunt future. They see a good future. The issue of training for mechanics for electric vehicles underground in the mines, that's mine mechanics are one of the main sources. Do we have to have a whole transition in terms of training, or is that is the skills that they have, is it transferable? What do we need to do to get those skills ready for electric vehicles?
Well, actually, we do need to support mechanics and workers in the, working right now on internal combustion engine vehicles, because there's a huge lack. I can tell you that because I work on a regular basis with dealers, with people. I worked on an assembly plant at Sainte-Thérèse for GM, back in the day. And I can tell you that right now there's a huge gap, but there's good news because I'm talking to people in the private sector right now, and they're working on putting together a training program. And I'm talking to NRCan as well. So things are happening, and more colleges and universities are getting on board with this, but it's happening now. It didn't happen 2 years ago, 5 years ago. It's happening right now. So we really need to accelerate the deployment of training programs.
Excellent. Well, that, unfortunately, is the end of our time together today. I would like to thank each of our witnesses. I think we're back fresh, and so we've had some good exchanges here today, and I appreciate all the witnesses for joining us. If there's anything from the conversation that has come up that you would like to provide additional information to us, we invite written briefs up to 10 pages, and so you can send that in through our clerk. And so I'll leave that with you if you want to provide any additional information. If the witnesses want to go, you're welcome to. Before we go into our closed session to continue the review of the report, we do need to adopt a revision to our budget for this study now that we can actually have people come in person. So there was a revision that was circulated to the committee, and I'm hoping, unless there's any questions, we had originally budgeted $11,925, and we're requesting an extra $8,750 so that we are able to bring some witnesses in person for the study. So if everybody's in agreement, if we could get a motion on that. And Mr. Bragdon? Okay, seconder, Ms. Jones. Any discussion? Otherwise, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, carried. Thank you. So with that, we're going to suspend. And do I gavel out for suspend? Okay. And we'll let our witnesses go. And I think just our analyst needs to come back in. Oh, and Mr. Shahal. So we'll get you to switch into the closed session, and we'll be picking up the Emissions Reduction Fund report in just a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.